great to be with you all this morning. Linda Plachek here from Papillion, where the sun is attempting to come out, which is why I had to grab my sunglasses, and I do have my Kiwanis cap on here. So I am ready to roll with you all this morning. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a member of the Omaha Golden K Kiwanis Club, and I've been a member of Kiwanis for 15 years. I have had the pleasure of being Lieutenant Governor for Division 20. In my club, I've served a number of positions with the district. I was the club leadership education administrator for a number of years. Now I've been given the task of youth protection manager. This is my third year of a 3-year term. I don't know if I'll be continuing. That will depend upon the future leadership of the district. And I want to say that of all the things I do in Kiwanis, I say that the one thing that I have terribly missed the most this past year has been my K-Kids group. It was our third year of doing K-Kids at Conestoga, a school in the inner city of Omaha. And just wonderful kids, and they loved all this activity that we did for the school and for their community and for the city as well. So that has been a real plus for me. So now you know a little bit about me. I love kids. I just want to say, you know, when I look at what we do with youth protection and why it's important, it's very simple. We follow the policies. We follow the best practices that we are given by Kiwanis International's Youth Protection Office, and we protect the kids, we protect ourselves, we protect our club, and most of all, we protect the good name of Kiwanis. Too often we hear in the media the names of organizations that have failed in their role to protect kids and protect their community and their organization. And Kiwanis never wants to be in that situation. So today I like this opportunity to make sure we have kids that are safe at our camp. Why is this important? You know, our kids are under so much, not only stress, but the whole point of the issue of being a child in 2021, it's a tough role these kids are in. It's tough for their parents. And we know we have issues of abuse, whether it's physical, mental, or sexual. Unfortunately, most of the time, the abuse happens at the hand of someone who is trusted in this child's life. Now, in Kiwanis, when we are in these roles of working with young people, whether they're little kids or teenagers or college kids, we become that trusted adult. And so we need to make sure that we never find ourselves in a position, or anyone in our club or organization, that has to answer for some inappropriate behavior. But we know that all these types of abuse exist, and unfortunately, suicide is the #2 leading cause of the deaths of children and youth in our country. And I would say I'd be surprised if it's not #1 after this pandemic, because we're hearing of these pockets around the country that are speaking out and saying how suicide has become a serious issue for high school kids, middle school kids, and then our college kids as well. So our kids really have a burden to share, to bear. And so we as Kiwanians have to take that responsibility very seriously, to make sure that when we're around kids, they're in a good, positive situation. They are not in any type of danger from predators, from trusted adults in their lives. And we know, as I said earlier, it's tough being a kid. We have exposure to violence. We have issues with adults that surround kids who are into alcohol abuse, drug abuse, or having mental illness issues themselves. We have access to firearms, bullying. And so being a kid right now is a really tough thing. And so that's why we take this so seriously and want to protect kids. I just thought I'd pull a few things together today about youth protection. Uh, we have this job to do that every club is responsible for, to educate members annually. That means taking 10 minutes of time at a meeting or a whole meeting to discuss what the policy and procedures are that KI has laid out for us. This is not a choice of clubs to do. It's a must. We owe it to the members and we owe it to the people we're going to interact with to be aware of that there is a policy and what important parts of it are that affect us most as we work with youngsters as well. I haven't received the statistic that we were promised as youth protection managers across the KI family to tell us by this time the percent of our clubs and which clubs have actually done their club training for this Kiwanis year. Hopefully KI will get me that information, but I would ask my lieutenant governors that are online, as you work with your clubs, your virtual division council meetings, please check with your clubs and with your club secretaries, particularly if their club has had youth protection training for all members this year, and if the secretary has reported that in their monthly report, because that's where the data will come from as well. So this needs to happen. And people are very creative in doing this. Some clubs, they invite me in to do the presentation. Ideally, in every club, you should have perhaps a member, talking about a range of members, who has a background maybe in education, who having that feel for how we work with organizations and schools and understanding of the need for these policies, is your youth protection manager or representative for your club. And that would be, then they would be in a really prime way prepared to do that training. And like I said, the best part of this, I think, is what I've seen evolve from KI, is that now we do have a PowerPoint or PDF that can be used for training. So a trainer, whether you're a club member or whether it's me, you can go right to our district website and go down to youth protection, and you will find some great resources there. And one of them is that PowerPoint that can be used for the annual club training. So no one can say they don't know what to do and they don't have the tools, because it's right there. And I think that has been a real plus that KI, putting a focus on youth protection, has provided for us all. And the other part of education is that we're supposed to be holding forums and workshops, and golly, we've had so much virtual to deal with. But I do hope, as the planners of the August convention lay out their agenda, that you will leave a spot for myself or Lon or both of us to share the training with people who are interested, or just hold a forum where people can come and ask us questions, that type of thing, about questions that may have come up in their clubs or situations related to youth protection as well. As part of this, of course, we must also have another key part of this is the background check. So KI has said, this is the policy, if your club designates you as the advisor to an service leadership program, which the club sponsors, you must have a background check. Must. Not if I feel like it, not if I think I should need, I don't need one. No, it's a must. And I just received information the other night when we had our KI Youth Protection Managers meeting that right now for the Nebraska-Iowa district, we are at 81% compliance with these advisors having a clear background check. That means we have 19% of folks who either don't know how to do it, don't think they need it, whatever. So once I get that actual data in terms of names of those who have their background check has expired or it's totally missing, I will be contacting them and their club secretaries. You know, it takes a mere moment to get that done, to apply for one, and the cost is $25. Club should reimburse you. You're serving in a club role and so they should put some money in their budget every year, and that can be part of the service budget to pay for that, because this is required as part of our service programs for working with youngsters. So we do have some work to do. I will say that when I saw the 81%, it was down a little bit from where we were a year ago, but I know that when people get an email saying, well, or notice that, oh, it's time to renew your background check, they're thinking, well, we're not even meeting this year. I'm going to wait till we're ready to start meeting again next fall with K-Kids or my Key Club, whatever, then I'm going to do it. But I will be following up with those folks who show up as expired or missing. And I will say that KI Youth Protection Office informed us the other night that on the first Thursday of every month, they are sending an email to any SLP advisor who is in that range of expired or missing a background check to re-notify them. And if they don't hear from them in a week, they are sending them another saying, hey, you need to get this done if you want to remain in the role of a advisor for the SLP that your club sponsors. Now, KI went as far last year as saying if people continue to ignore this request, then they will be removed as an SLP advisor. So last September, I received the list of people who were in danger of, in our district, of having their status removed. And I worked with the most wonderful secretaries of clubs that you could imagine, because the secretary in that club, they know who the advisor is. And as I worked with them, we found out, well, gee, John Smith hasn't been the advisor for that Key Club for 3 years. Or we find out, well, he doesn't want to do it anymore, so we're going to find someone else. So that was really a good way to clean some things up. So club secretaries are fabulous people. They have the finger on what's going on in terms of the club, and were so helpful to me. And I know as I work with in the next months to make sure we're getting a higher rate of compliance, they will also be fantastic in working with me. One of the things that came about in the past few years from KI was the whole issue of chaperones, and particularly related to overnight events. Now, we know in the past year and a half, we have not had particularly activities like Key Leader, which brings up always a lot of questions about who may be a chaperone. Kiwanis had never been really clear on this, so they laid out in the policy, must be 21 years or older, must also lay out in terms of the fact that chaperones need a background check. So if you're lining up chaperones for an event, an overnight event, they need to, in advance, get that background check requested. There's also training for a chaperone, whether they are a Kiwanis member or not. And that comes through Presidium, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then they also laid out the 10-to-1 ratio. If you have 10 females, you must have 1 female chaperone. If you have 10 males, you must have 1 male per 10. It can be more than that. If you're buddying up with chaperones, that's not a problem. But this would be the minimum of 1 chaperone per 10 youth. And of course, that is determined by gender. One thing that we know is coming up and will come up more in key leader situations, particularly and overnight situations, is the issue of gender identity. And I know a couple years ago that already came up in our own district, key leader planning. And we had a youngster who birth gender was one thing, but what the child said they were, and the young youth as well as the parent, and our district leadership with key leader worked with that child and that family and took care of that situation very easily in determining how that child would be chaperoned, where that child would have sleeping quarters, etc. So these are things that will continue to come up, but using what's called best practices, using a lot of good common sense and good people skills, these issues can be worked through and come to a positive conclusion as well. So as these come up, I think we should not be afraid of them. It's part of life now. And so we need to be aware that it will, but also be open to working with the youth and the family and the school person, the key leader, advisor from the school who's working with the child who's decided to participate in key leader. So I want to go on here. Another part that we needed to nail down was about medication. We are not doctors. We are not nurses. And if we are and have our own practices and our license, that's fine. But when it's in a Kiwanis situation, like a Camp OK, like an overnighter, then medication is only allowed with permission, written permission of a parent or guardian. Kid comes to you with a headache, you don't say, oh, I've got some Tylenol here in my camp bag. Take one of these, you'll be fine. That's not our job. We can't do it that way. We have to follow the KI procedures. One that always tricks people, and I get a lot of questions about, is, of course, transportation best practices. And this evolved and seems to come about a lot when we're talking about Camp OK. So we're going to sponsor some kids to go, and they need transportation to meet the bus. And so we want to ensure that they're safe. That's why following the rule of 3, if you are the person who is going to be picking up a child or 2 kids, the easiest thing is to say, ask another one of your club members to say, can you ride along with me while we pick up John and Susie and take them to the bus? In other words, get another adult with you. It can be your spouse. I've seen that happen in my own division here when we're getting kids ready. Husband and wife bring a kid or 2 to the bus location. It doesn't have to be a major thing, but if it ends up that, okay, one person is transporting 2 kids and you're not picking them up separately, you've got to pick them up together. So there's that rule of 3. The kids are in the back seat, and you have written approval from the parents or guardian that you have permission to take this child to the place where the bus is going to pick them up, or you're going to pick them up and take them back to a place where the parents will be meeting them when they return from that. We need to be sensible. This is an area where it can get very dicey sometimes. So protect yourself, be smart, follow the rule of 3, have written permission if you're in that situation, and follow any local school policies. If this is something that's happening during the school day and your K kids are going off to some kind of event where they need transportation or going to do a service project, follow the rules of 3. But first of all, if it's kids coming from school, follow what the school policy is. Ride situation. So if they say, oh, we're going to get a bus, we're going to take a van, that's wonderful. Gee, but if it ends up that you need to provide transportation, get the written permission of the parents as well as follow the rule of 3. We have talked today about Facebook and social media communications. If your Key Club has a Facebook page, if your CKI group does, if your K Kids do, create a club page, because you don't want to be in the position of, as an individual, as the SLP advisor, initiating contact with a youngster on your own personal page. Keep this always out in public and do a club page. Don't do individual contacts of these members. Don't initiate following, don't initiate friending. Remember, this all is public. So what you say and what you post is there for the quote, the world to see. And so protect yourself, protect the kids, protect your club, and protect Kiwanis when you're involved with this kind of thing, when you're using social media with your groups. And so what are the real futures for our youth protection? This is why it all happens. First of all, we want to protect our youth members from predators, whether internal or external. We want to empower and educate our adult members with best practices to follow when working with youth. And we also want to make sure that, and this is kind of new, and I'll talk about this more in a minute, we need to look in the fact that when we have these opportunities for kids, Builders Club, K-Kids, whatever, this is an opportunity to build positive leadership skills for kids. And KI is doing some really nice things and looking at this in a different way. It's not just that we want the kids to come together and do service. No, we want kids, because of the issues that they are dealing with in their lives frequently, we want to give them some positive skills to develop their leadership skills, give them knowledge in terms of protecting themselves, and we want to make sure that, hey, we're engaging our future Kiwanis leaders, our future community leaders. We want to build positive skills for these children as well. And so we have the ABCs. We have accessible, high quality training and resources. This is for our own folks that are working with the kids. We have Presidium, which KI has partnered with, which provides training for all Kiwanians, but particularly our SLP advisors. And that there's specific training for chaperones. And then we have the ongoing training and resources for youth protection managers, as in this summer in Salt Lake City, and I'm hoping to make this trip live, but KI will be offering to us youth protection managers 3 different courses to update us on best practices, on the policies and the resources available for kids. So that's our A. Our B is those background checks, and what they're looking for is to make sure we have background checks that are current and up to date, that they would like to see recognition for the clubs and districts that reach that level. And at KI, there is a dedicated compliance specialist who assists the district managers with correct information in ways that we can ensure that we are getting to that B, the background checks and beyond. And then C, the newest issue is really this C, the culture of care. We want to ensure that there are resources for all of us who are working with youth on their development and helping them development, that there's online training and resources for the youngsters on positive peer pressure, being an upstander, don't just be a bystander when you observe things, and then resources even for parents. Right now, this is taking a focus on with our key club members and our CKI groups. KI has developed online leadership courses, and right now they're piloting 3 with youngsters that they have designated from around districts around KI. When those courses are complete by April, they will then gather input from the kids who have participated, and then by this fall, they will launch 39 different courses for youngsters who are in Key Club or CKI that will focus on developing for them leadership skills, skills in volunteerism, and also fellowship as well. So KI is really taking a positive look at this and what we can do, not only when we meet with the kids, but providing them resources outside of us. And so I'm hoping that those of you who are administrators in our district of the of CKI, as well as our key clubs, are being contacted about KI about this. These resources that are available and will be coming available to our youngsters who are members of these groups during the next months ahead. And what should I say in terms of resources? I've talked about our district website. Thank you, Lisa and Ron Petch, for getting us our own space there on that district website for youth protection guidelines. There's lots of information there, as I mentioned. The training PowerPoint is there. Also, there's information about going to Presidium and getting online to complete training as an adult. And then also there's a great new website that KI has developed, Kiwanis.org at Youth Protection. It is excellent. They have done wonderful things. There are 7 headings there that any Kiwanian is free to go to that website, check it out, see what's available, and share with, if you're a lieutenant governor, hey, I would share this stuff with your clubs so we make sure they're getting the message that these resources are there and available for them. And I want to say my job is to educate folks within the district of the policies, to inform them when we have changes, and then most of all to assist clubs with any questions that come up as they are planning events. It's always wise to think through these things ahead of time. I am there to help you if something happens and there's an incident that you feel uncomfortable about, something that's happened or is happening at a Kiwanis sponsored event involving youth. But the best thing is to be proactive. So we want folks to be aware of what the policies are and aware of the fact that I am a resource for them to contact in case they do have questions and are planning some kind of event. Don't hesitate to contact me, and there's my website. I think I just want to say thank you for being part of this today. And if they have questions, then people should contact me. Thanks so much.
Yes, I can't thank Linda enough for all the work she's doing and continues to do. And Lisa, the website looks wonderful. All those resources are there for the clubs. And if they need to, they can just call you or KI and they'll send them to you by mail if you need that club resource for insurance. So a few years ago, when our then governor, Lenora, asked if I would consider taking a position as risk manager, I really didn't know we had one. And but it's so important. And after serving 40 some years in the insurance business, I thought, well, sure, that'd be something I could do and perhaps be a resource for that. So gosh, through all the fun we've had this morning, now we get to talk about risk management. Whoop, whoop. But no, seriously, people would ask, what is risk management? And I could just sum it up that we really can't eliminate all risk, but we can do our best to reduce what risk we have. I'd like to start with just a few actual insurance claims that we've seen that have been filed against Kiwanis International. The first one made most of the headlines a few years ago, and it's ongoing. Has to do with the Centralia, Washington State Kiwanis Vocational Home for Boys. It was open from 1979 till 1995. Awards for victims of violence and abuse have reached over 22 million to date, of which Kiwanis' share is just almost nearing 3 million. And the state of Washington Health and Human Services has paid most of those, and there are over, again, 20 million. The problem is this involved kids, the people that we are most responsible for. And this may be just the tip of the iceberg, because there is a backlog of lawsuits pending from many more plaintiffs. So again, I mentioned we can't eliminate all risk, but we can do our best to reduce what risk we have. Well, in this case, years of documented concerns on that local Kiwanis Club's letterhead did not go unnoticed by the prosecutors in these cases. That's pretty sobering, isn't it? The second case is something we're all familiar with. It's a Pancake Festival. They call it a Pancake Festival. Kiwanis Annual Pancake Festival at LSU. In this case, a jury found the local Kiwanis Club negligent in that they had invited a canine officer and his bomb-sniffing dog to do a demonstration, and then who bit a 10-year-old girl as she was trying to pet it. Innocent mistake. She suffered puncture wounds to her face. The settlement was for $10,000 plus $1,496 in special damages. So we all know that canine officers and the work they do is important, but perhaps the club might have thought twice before inviting that police dog and its handler to their Pancake Festival, or perhaps found a place where it was safer and maybe further away from the public for that presentation. Who knows? We weren't there, but several things come to mind. The third case I'd just like to highlight comes from Bangor, Maine. The Breakfast Kiwanis Club was found negligent when an antique fire truck that they owned collided with a restored antique tractor during a parade. And unfortunately, the man on the tractor was killed. His widow was awarded an undisclosed amount for her loss. Now, Maine, the state of Maine, much like other states, limits their liability to $400,000. The sad part of this case is that, yes, there was a life lost, but the brake lines on that fire truck were found to be leaking brake fluid very badly, and they had no written history of regular maintenance. So, will we continue to exist in this state of self-confinement during COVID and let life pass us by? We certainly hope not, and we know there's a bright future ahead of us. But for many of us, our goal is just like it was, is to live our lives to the fullest as we had done in the past. Now, each club secretary has a copy of the Club Insurance Resource Guide. It's also available in a PDF at our Kiwanis KI website. Here are proven practices that Kiwanis has found to be very effective. All of these forms and resources are included in this guide. Number one, waivers. Because of the highly litigious nature of our society, claims will continue to be filed against clubs. It will be filed for simple accidents that often occur during an event, even though the accident was not in any way caused by a Kiwanian or the club. Certainly, if someone is injured due to the negligence of a Kiwanis member, we should be held accountable. However, frivolous claims have and will continue to be filed for accidents which there is no one to blame. After years of study and working with our legal experts and insurance carrier to attempt to resolve this problem, our Board of Trustees and legal counsel are recommending to all clubs the use of waiver of liability forms. Very common, something that we've seen now during COVID. The purpose of this form is to require people to take responsibility for their own actions and to assume the risk of foreseeable injuries, especially when your club sponsors an event such as a marathon, a race, basketball game, a league or tournament, bike-a-thon, golf or tennis event, a baseball game, leagues and tournaments. These forms should always be signed by the participant or their guardian and retained on file by your club for a period of 2 years following the event. So don't leave home without them. Number 2, outside contractors. Certificates of insurance should be obtained from any firm or organization presenting events for your Kiwanis Club, furnishing equipment, or selling products or services. Now that we get out of this time of COVID, we'll be doing more outside events, inviting the public in again. Things like carnivals, circuses, rodeos, sporting events, auto shows, races fall in this category, as do concessionaires selling products. In these situations, the contractor involved should assume all liability. The club should obtain a hold harmless provision from that contractor. Easy form to fill out. On the other hand, owners of premises and facilities used by our clubs can request a certificate of insurance from us. They go directly to KI with respect to their liability for the Kiwanis use of their property. These are available again at no charge from our insurance carrier named Hylant, Hylant. Most of these requests can be filled on a next day basis. So even if, oversight, we've forgotten, you can get it the next day. Number 3, a safety coordinator. Looking for something for your club members to do? Here's a great job for someone. Each Kiwanis club is urged to appoint their own safety coordinator, who is just to be consulted in the planning of any Kiwanis sponsored event to help ensure the safety of it, participants and all others involved. A good match for this job would be perhaps your member, who is the local home and auto insurance agent, or a great choice as a new member. They can help you analyze potential risk factors and obtain the necessary hold harmless and certificates of insurance to protect your club, the public, and the people you do business with. Currently, each Kiwanis member pays an annual premium of $17, which is included in our dues for a comprehensive general liability policy to shield us from the cost of lawsuits. It has a $2 million limit. And as an added bonus, since 2015, Kiwanis International added directors and officers liability coverage to shield us from the cost of lawsuits. Our recently added directors and officers plan includes insurance for committee chairs and other club members and even volunteers. The fourth thing I'd like to mention is claims reporting. When a potential claim occurs, do not admit liability or suggest that a settlement may be offered. If a club receives any correspondence from a claimant to this effect, an immediate report should be made to Hylant in Indianapolis at 800-678-0361. Important reminder, just report. Don't volunteer to get involved in handling a claim situation. This is what we pay our insurance premiums to Hylant for. In closing, I'd just like to list a few of the key exclusions. Everyone kind of wants to know a little bit about, what's not covered. Well, effective November 1st, 2020, our policy will no longer respond to claims related to pandemic or endemic communicable diseases such as COVID-19. This is a universal exclusion. You talk to any business and they realize that there's no way, unless under a laboratory setting, no one can prove that they got this for anyone's fault. It just happens. And so that's a universal exclusion. Kiwanis was really had to add this. It just would have made our insurance, it wouldn't have been available, period. We had to do that. Number 2, liability arising out of a Kiwanis activity from the use of automobiles owned by Kiwanians. Now that's covered, but only as excess over the owner's insurance. You must carry your own automobile insurance. That's number 1. Physical damage coverage, such as comprehensive and collision, is specifically excluded. Number 2, liability arising out of the operation, use, or maintenance of aircraft. No kidding, including hot air balloons, is not covered. Liability arising out of the operation, use, or maintenance of any owned watercraft, except owned rowboats and canoes by Kiwanis clubs, or non-owned watercraft over 50 feet, is not covered. But if the club, again, owns a rowboat or a canoe, offers that to children at a camp, it's covered. Liability arising out of injury to employees. Now that's where workman's compensation must be placed in effect if you have an employee in your club. But it's not covered because you as your club should take care of that. Next is liability for damage to property in our care, custody, or control, not owned by your club. That's not covered. And last but not least, you might chuckle, but it's here. Bungee or Velcro jumping runs are specifically excluded under the policy. No kidding. So the old adage is still just as fresh as ever. Safety is no accident. Please consider appointing a club safety coordinator whose function is, number 1, to be familiar with this liability insurance program. 2, that's on hand to help educate your members. 3, be involved in the planning of activities and events. 4, to look for potential hazards. 5, to transfer risk to others whenever possible through that hold harmless agreement, who can request insurance certificates from anyone your club partners with for activities or events. Number 6, use that pre-event safety inspection report. Very helpful resource. It's on page 18 through 21 in your club insurance resource guide. Every club secretary has that, and they're also available from KI if you'd like another copy. Number 7, report incidents promptly and completely to Highland at that 800-678-0361 number. And last but not least, remember, our insurance is there to protect your club and the Kiwanis brand, and most of all, to those whom we serve. So to sum it up, this loss prevention program can also, number 1, provide proven and effective risk avoidance measures. 2, protect the name and integrity of your club in your community. 3, aid in minimizing the cost of any losses that may occur. 4, promote the retention of strong leaders in our organization. And 5, help attract potential Kiwanis members, officers, and volunteers because they know they're in a good place.